What it is, what it do, cyber world. It is your girl, the one and only, Ash Brown, and this is the Ash Said It Show. I appreciate you guys for all of your love and support. Nearly 2,000 episodes since 2014 and growing. None of this is possible without you guys. Thank you for all the shares, the cares, the downloads, the streams. Everything makes a huge, huge difference. So today, my guest is the wonderful, incredibly talented Dr. Eran Magen. Hello, Dr. Magen. How are you?
Hello, Ash. I am great. Please call me Eran. I think this will make it a lot easier for everybody.
Yes. Definitely work on that. All right. So, Dr. Magen, you've earned your MA in education and Ph.D. in psychology from Stanford University after serving as the research director at the University of Pennsylvania's Department of Counseling and Psychological Services. You also founded a company that works with the university and K-12 schools to prevent student suicide. And you're also the founder of parentingforhumans.com and divorcingdads.org, which supports parents in creating strong collaborative relationships with their children. Sir, how do you find time to sleep? That sounds like a lot.
It is a lot, and it's all fun. I mean, a lot of it is about figuring out what can I start and then hand off to other people to do, which is a lot of what's happening in my main business now. The company that you mentioned that works with universities and schools on suicide prevention. That's an honest to goodness company. It's an actual business, and that's where I make money and how I pay the bills. The parenting work, both for parenting in general and for the divorcing dads, that's really something that I do as a passion project, and I just assign blocks in the week to do that.
Yeah. So how did things start with you as far as your focus on parenting and helping parents to connect with their children? Where did that work initially start for you?
When I was thinking about going to study psychology, I was reading, obviously, about what's been done so far and what I might be interested in, and I came upon this book written by a guy called Carl Rogers, and the book was called Freedom to Learn, and the book just blew my mind. Like, he had this philosophy that seemed very different than what I'd heard before, and this idea of a parent as essentially a mentor and a support person for the child, rather than as the person that's being very directive toward the child. And the book came into my life at exactly the right time. I'd been having this long conversation, kind of a debate, I guess, with a friend that spanned a few weeks when we're thinking about what's the source of discipline. Why would kids listen to their parents? And he was really strongly convinced that at the core of it, it's about fear. That respect is founded in fear, and even if the fear is not founded necessarily on any kind of physical threats that are made or carried out, he said it's enough, when they're really little, then it's easier to scare them, and then they kind of have it in the back of their minds, and that's why they listen to your authority. Is essentially rooted in your kids being afraid of you. And I remember even at the time, it didn't sit quite right with me, and I thought, no, I think that really, really great collaborations come from a sense of trust and a sense of love and respect, and that I really don't think there has to be fear behind it. And the book, when I was reading that particular book, it gave me a lot more words, so I can sound much smarter in the conversation with him, which was reassuring. But it comes from the same direction. And then fast forward a few years, and I'm doing my Ph.D. in psychology, and I got very curious about how people can support one another if they're not clinicians. You meet a friend, you say, how's it going? And the friend said, not such a great day. What do you do? What do you do that actually works to help this person? And I learned as much as I could about it, and then started doing sessions on how to be a friend. I remember hanging up flyers around town for that, and people came. It was really heartwarming. And then as time went by, I became more and more interested specifically in the relationship between parents and kids, and how can parents be this kind of source of support and reassurance for their kids in a way that also ends up with the kids being really collaborative with their parents and being willing to do what parents are saying, again, without this fear or harshness behind it. And I've been doing it for, 14, 15 years now, I think, doing workshops for schools, for teachers, for parents, and it's just so incredibly satisfying to do it and to see things clicking for parents and then to hear from the parents about how things are changing in their relationships with the kids. I just love it. I think it's the most important thing in the world, relationships between kids and parents.
Yeah, definitely. So in your research, were you able to do any like case studies, or were you like following any specific family details, or how did you compile your research for this project?
A lot of the research is already out there, and I didn't really need to reinvent the wheel. I did some of my own studies, but a lot of it is really out there. I studied a few different things in graduate school, but I think the ones that are relevant for what we're talking about here was research that I did on how do people support other people that are feeling bad, that are scared or upset or jealous or what have you. And the research that I did was on the effectiveness of what's called non-directive support. Right? So somebody comes to you with a problem, and instead of trying to solve it, you do other things, mostly listen to them, essentially listen and validate the issue. And I think the study that I liked the most that I did was I got a stuffed elephant, a pink stuffed elephant, and I had the research participants, who were students, think about an issue that's upsetting for them that was going on in their lives, and then brought them into a room where there was either a stuffed elephant or another student. And then I said, you're welcome to talk to this other thing, right, whether it's a student or an elephant, about this issue that you're having if you want. And they spoke with other students, and it was okay, but very often the other students would jump into giving advice or sharing their own stories, and it's not satisfying to do it when you're upset. You want to talk about your thing, and you don't want people to grab the wheel. But the interactions with the elephant were really shocking. Like, people emoted a lot. People were having really strong feelings, and they cried and they laughed. And then later on, one participant, when we said it's time to stop, she asked if it's okay to hug the elephant. It was very touching. And out of that came really a whole system of how to be helpful. And the main idea is that you have to let people get their emotional charge out before you start trying to add things into their mind, right? So it's great to give good advice. It's great to ask people questions and help them change their perspective, but it doesn't work to do it while they're still upset. You have to first help them become less upset, mostly through really good, connected listening. And when they're less upset, then you can add your 2 cents. And the same thing works. It works the same way with kids as it does with adults, and that's one of the key things I focus on with parents, is not trying to immediately manage and change the kid. Give them time to get it out of their system so that they're calmer and a little emptier and ready to receive.
Right. Now, what do you feel are some of the risks for divorcing parents? We'll just say it in a general sense. We're not going to pull out in a particular group, but what do you think some of the risks are for them?
Yeah, and I think the risks are very similar for men and women going through a divorce, with a single exception, basically, which is that men are much more likely to die by suicide in general than women, right? About 4 times more likely to die by suicide. And divorcing men are more likely, about twice as likely to die by suicide than any other marital status of man. Whereas divorcing women are not more likely to die of suicide than other women. And so that's an important difference, and we can talk about maybe where these things come from if you're interested. But setting that aside, I think that the problems that people face are very similar. The world gets really turned on its head for people going through a divorce, right? Family is the main thing for many people to think to focus on an Orient too. Maybe there was good communication and good support happening for some time, and suddenly it requires a big change, a change in where you live, a change in how you make money or how much money you have, or need to make a big change in the routine with the kids. Yeah. And often one or the other of the parents ends up having a lot less contact with the kids than that parent had before. And that, I think, is a true tragedy for the kids and for the parents.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree about that. And I know that usually in a divorce situation, a lot of the focus is put on the children, is that it is, I say it is just as important for the child to have support as it is the divorcing parents. Now, what are some good ways to support a divorcing parent?
I think starting from the very, very beginning, I would say if you can at all have the divorce happen amicably, collaboratively, that is so important, so much better for everyone involved, because also for the kids. The thing that is the worst about divorce for kids is the conflict between parents. When there's not much conflict, when conflict is low, or when the kids are shielded effectively from this conflict, and parents are not, saying bad things about the other parent, and they're not kind of pulling the kids into it, kids can sort of fail through a divorce. It's no longer unusual, for better or for worse. It's not unusual to be the child of divorced parents. Like 50% of marriages, roughly, in the U.S. now end up in a divorce. Kids of divorced parents know a lot of other kids of divorced parents. It's not a weird thing anymore. Yeah. And the thing, again, that really does hurt them is when there's a lot of conflict between the parents. And so the very first thing to do is work really hard to make the divorce as amicable and as collaborative as possible. And there are a lot of professionals out there that do non-adversarial divorce. Yeah. And can really help people through the process. They work with both people. Sometimes they'll sign agreements saying, if anybody takes this to court, you can't work with us. Like, you have to start fresh with a totally different person. And that's a big incentive to keep it collaborative. So that's one thing. It's sort of preventative, right? It's not exactly supporting parents, but it's making sure that they don't put themselves in a situation that creates a huge amount of stress. So that's one, aiming for collaborative if possible. The other, parents have a few different kinds of support resources that are available to them. One, probably most importantly, is just friends and family, and just not being shy about it. Some people feel embarrassed about getting divorced, or if somebody is worried that people will judge them either for getting divorced or for what led to the divorce. And your friends don't care and your family doesn't care. They're on your side. And even if they think you did something that was less than 100% awesome, they're still going to be on your side. And I think just letting friends know that this is happening is hugely important. And there are different ways to do it. If you're not comfortable talking with people, you can write to them. I have somebody I spoke with, divorcing dad I spoke with, wrote kind of a template email that so he wouldn't have to kind of write afresh every time, and he sent it out to people that he kind of handpicked. He sent it out to a few and saw how it went, and then sent it out to a few more and saw how it went. And I think that's super important, and people come and offer support. It's really heartwarming. It's actually a great opportunity to reconnect with people that the parents may have not been as close to, right? Because in a committed relationship, often the energy goes in and we kind of lose touch with friends. So that's one, and I think the most important thing by far is reaching out to friends and family. Yeah. The second thing, if necessary, reach out to professionals. Professionals in the kind of support and emotional health sort of part of the game, right? So if you're a therapist or support groups or your faith community, if you have one, right? There's going to be support groups. There's going to be people to talk to and people that they connect you to. So reaching out to people whose formal position is to support you. Yeah. So that's the second. the third, and this is possibly the trickiest, is just for parents to take also good care of themselves during the process and not feel like they're supposed to suffer, right? So schedule things that you enjoy doing. These things can be conversations with friends, or they could be that class that you always wanted to take but didn't.
Right.
Just scheduling something good and wholesome and pleasant into your routine makes a huge difference. And then that's sort of all on the parents. But if you're a person and you're hearing about somebody getting divorced, just to take it very seriously and to check in with them. It doesn't have to be a dramatic conversation, but just literally saying, this is happening, how is this going for you, how are you feeling? And then doing that once a week for months, right? Because everybody's going to ask during the first couple of weeks, but it's sort of like after someone important dies, right? Everybody checks in the first few weeks and then they kind of assume everything's okay and they go back to their lives. But really the very hard part can come later. And so becoming that person who is still in touch, checking in, maybe once a week, maybe once a month, right? But just making it clear that you're there and you're wanting to listen and to help and to support. I think that's a great way to support a friend that you know is going through this and not just assume that they're okay just because they said that they were okay 2 weeks ago.
Absolutely. Now, I appreciate you being on my show and really going into a lot of your expertise. But a little birdie told me that you have a podcast of your own. So do share.
I just started it a few weeks ago. So part of what I do in this line of work is I talk with dads going through a divorce. And I work specifically with men because there's really very few resources for men going through divorce. And very often it's the men who end up losing touch with the kids, which I think is just very, very bad for the kids and for the dads. And so as I talk with the dads, if they're willing, we record the conversations. We make sure to protect their privacy and the privacy of their family. So they go pretty hard on that. So we have actors reread their lines. So the voice is different. We change names and locations and so on. But the goal there is to help people who are just at the very start of that process have a sense of what it could look like moving forward, a little bit in order to understand how to navigate common pitfalls, but really most of all to give people hope so they know that things get better and people get quite happy. If it was the wrong relationship and it ended, and if it ended, it was probably the wrong relationship. And if you can get to a place where you feel really good and rebuild a life that you really love and stay very connected to your kids. And that's the whole point of this podcast. So it's called Divorcing Dads. I mean, anybody's welcome to listen to it, but I guess as dads will connect more to it. But there's no bashing of the exes there. You know, that's not the goal and it's not the message. The message is always be the best parent you can be totally present, de-escalate, reduce conflict, focus on your time with your kids. When your kids are not with you, focus on building a life that you love for yourself, which I think is a universal message.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, Dr. Magen, if people want to get more information or they want to reach out to you or they have any kind of questions or concerns in this field, in this regard, where do they need to go?
Yeah. The two best places to go would be for websites. One is called parentingforhumans.com. And that has recorded workshops and ways to get in touch with me. And if people want to organize workshops for their communities or groups, I'm happy to do it. I don't charge for that when it's people organizing workshops for their communities. So if you have a mom group, a parenting group, a church group, a school group, whatever it is, I love doing these things. It's just we may schedule it, a little bit out into the future because there's quite a few of those getting scheduled, but I don't charge anything for it. And I really love doing this work. So all that is at parentingforhumans.com, and you can email me at Eran, ERAN, at parentingforhumans.com. And then for the Divorcing Dads work, that's all on divorcingdads.org. And again, there's videos there and blog posts and support groups that people can connect to if they want. And then the podcast is linked from there, or to listen to the podcast. To listen to the podcast directly, you can just look for a podcast called Divorcing Dads, and you'll find it.
Sounds like a plan. Dr. Magen, thank you so much for coming through today. We certainly appreciate it.
My great pleasure. Yeah.
Yes, and much more success to you and your team and all the good that you're doing out, helping parents navigate this thing called parenthood, through divorce sometimes. So we certainly appreciate that and everything that you're doing to put out some good energy for the world. Absolutely.
Thank you. I feel like I'm putting in a little piece there, right? Because you're helping everybody navigate this little thing we call life.
Yeah.
And within life, there's also parenting.
Yeah.
So I'm happily slotting into that little piece there.
Definitely. And I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you so much for your love and support. Keeping in mind, anyone to tell you that you can't do what you want to do, you look them square in the face, you tell them, don't believe me. Just watch. Watch what I do. Watch me make it happen. Watch me make history. That's what we're doing this for, the history books. Social media is nice, but real life is so much better. Until next time, you guys.